As an archaeologist at a site like Avebury, I tend to look not just at the banks and ditches of the monument, but also at the ground, just to see if there's any pieces of pottery or flint that might help me understand the site. Doing that just now, I noticed these white fragments here. At first glance I thought they were bits of a broken cup or something, but they're not. They're part of a photograph that's been torn up, and turning it over and piecing it back together, it's obviously someone's wedding photograph. And looking at the pieces that are still here, the only bit that's actually missing is the groom's head. I don't know what sad story lies behind this photograph, but what it does tell me, the fact that someone has chosen Avebury to come and leave this photograph, to tear it up and leave it here, really does bring home to me quite how important the site still is to people today.
The stone circle and its ditches are an impressive sight in themselves, but Avebury is bigger even than that. 2 avenues lead from the site, passing enormous man-made features, including Silbury Hill and long barrows like this one at West Kennet. This area of the Wiltshire Chalk Downs is saturated in evidence of man's activity and settlement. What seems to have been happening is that Avebury remained a focus of religious activity, attracting burial mounds for up to 1,000 years. One of the avenues leads to another, much more remote circle that's become known as the Sanctuary. Mike Pitts is an archaeologist who's recently unearthed important evidence that hints at the way the monument may have been used by its original builders.
Mike, it looks very different to Avebury. There's no standing stones for a start.
No people either. It's a very bleak place, but there were stones here. There were 2 small stone circles that were taken away in the 18th century. Inside those rings there were 6 rings of timber posts, and we don't know whether all the posts and all the stones were standing up at the same time or whether they followed each other in succession. What I think was happening here was that at one particular time there was never a big monument. It was always a place where posts were being put up and taken down, and not necessarily in complete rings.
So actually building the monument or adding things to it was part of the ritual. It wasn't that the monument was built and then used. It was the ritual. So 4,000 years ago, people from Avebury could have walked 1.5 miles through an avenue with massive stones either side of them, all of the way to get to this bleak, cold hilltop. And you did some digging here, Mike, recently?
Yeah, we did a few months ago. We excavated a small part in the centre of the site.
That's just over here, is it?
Over here. Let's go see.
What were you actually looking for?
What we were doing.
So, what's all this? This is...
Nothing to do with me. This is precisely the sort of thing we get.
And it's bay leaf, isn't it? And a rose, it's the garden rose. Do you have any idea what these items
Absolutely
mean?
none, no.
None at all. Did you used to get that sort of thing when there was digging going on here?
We did indeed.
You
one of the first people who came to visit us was a druid who blessed us, and quite often groups of women would come here and have little chanting ceremonies. And we found in the excavation objects like this, quite recent stuff, perishable things, twigs and leaves and fruit. I think the fact that the majority of people who are doing these things appear to be women suggests that there is somewhere out there's a community where people are aware of what other people are doing. I don't think, say 50 years ago, anything like this was happening here at all. I think this is all a recent phenomenon. I think people are reinventing or inventing their own stories about the past and their relationship with Avebury and what it means to them, and I think it's not something that comes from a long tradition. There's a physical mark in the landscape that's here because of people's beliefs and ritual activities a long time ago that's long outlasted those beliefs, and it's now being reread in a completely different way by people in the present.
The prehistoric stone circle at Avebury lies on the Chalk Downs not far from Swindon. Chances to work on a site as important as Avebury are few and far between, but a few years ago I was lucky enough to be part of a team which undertook a huge survey of the whole area. We measured and recorded everything, not just the prehistoric sites, but all the medieval and later remains, and we were able to compile a complete picture of the whole area which is kept here at the National Monuments Record Centre in Swindon. The centre has a huge collection of aerial photographs, and as you might imagine, they've got Avebury very well covered. Given the unique landscape perspective that you get from the air, it's hardly surprising that archaeologists have been photographing the Avebury area for nearly 100 years. You might think that by now we've taken every possible photo from every conceivable angle, but aerial archaeology is not like that. Different weather conditions at different times of year can completely transform our view of the archaeology. These are two really good examples, both taken within the last 5 years. Here, just near the Avebury Avenue, there's a cluster of ploughed-out Bronze Age burial mounds, and round the outside there's traces of what looks like a ploughed-out enclosure ditch, which has never been seen before. And on this one, taken in very dry conditions, not only can we see patches of parched grass showing us where stones have been buried underground, but there's also completely new evidence of a small enclosure right inside the henge. In the 7th century AD, Christianity came to Britain, and it wasn't long before there was a Saxon church on this site, just outside the circle.
Well, there's been a record of a church here from 1000 AD. There's building at various periods in the church since Saxon times, so one presumes that people have gone on worshipping for at least 900, if not 1,000 years.
What really intrigues me is how the paganism that Avebury represented would have fared when Christianity arrived in Britain.
Well, there are various, obviously, interpretations. One of them is that what went on inside the circle was fearful, and that the Christian church was placed outside as a source of light and hope and stability. Whether the church felt threatened by the evil, what they might have seen as evil or darkness, I don't know.